Hello and welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, the podcast that disbanded in shame. I'm one of your hosts, Steve Watts.
And I could be playing Overwatch right now. Steve, I want to tell you about today's sponsor and everyday's sponsor. The Chattycast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a free trial for 30 days at www.audibletrial.com/Chattycast.
That's right. So every week we pick a big topic, post about it on the Shack News Chatty, and then we talk about it in detail, hence Chattycast. Today's guest, the tracer to our Soldier 76, by which I mean a much more interesting character who should probably be the face of this thing, Cassidy Moser.
Are you implying that I speak with a very cutesy British accent? Don't worry, love.
That's exactly what I'm implying, yes.
Oh,
and
don't worry, love.
I expect you to keep up that accent throughout the entire show.
I'll do what I can.
So, if it hasn't been made obvious enough by now, we're going to be talking about Overwatch. Brian has elbowed his way into the hosting responsibilities and said I'm co-host, you owe me this. Issued some threats.
This is my compensation.
It got ugly. Point is, we're going to talk about Overwatch, but he did raise some discussion starter questions that are not just like, hey, let's all talk about how great Overwatch is. But before we get to that, let's talk about some things that aren't Overwatch. Just to have like a little bit of a palate cleanser before we dive into that. Because I feel like the what have you been playing is going to segue neatly into the big topic. So have you been playing anything else? We'll let Cassidy go first. Cassidy, what have you been playing that is not Overwatch?
Well, I can talk about Civ 6 today. I played a...
That's right, you can.
Yeah, I played a 60-turn... Yeah, it was a 60-turn demo last week at Judges Week. It's Civ.
And in your preview, you said Teddy Roosevelt declared war on you, which is...
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
that
fun.
was apropos of nothing, too. It was kind of funny. He was just like, you me no choice.
You accidentally attacked one of his things, and I guess there's no text command for like, I'm sorry it was an accident.
Yeah, no, and that actually plays into one of the new features that they're doing for 6, where they are giving world leaders more of a personality, like akin to how those actual world leaders operated. So, like with Teddy Roosevelt, they said that he believes in like big stick diplomacy. I I forget what they called it, but basically he's like, you step on my turf, I'm gonna mess you up, kind of like that. That's how they were explaining that he operates anyway. So they tried to incorporate that into the game so that there's a little bit more. I guess it's not quite as homogenous between all the world leaders, which is, it's cool.
True to life, if you shoot Teddy Roosevelt, it just makes him angry.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's interesting that you bring that up, because the thing that has been sort of the hallmark of civilization is that they are not really defined by the historical representations of these people. So you have Gandhi threatening nuclear war, which
there's reason behind that. I've heard recently, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, go. Now I want to hear what.
Yeah, okay. In the first few civs, I forget what the most recent reason is, but in the first few civs, it was that every world leader had like a peace rating or something like that. And from what I've heard, this is all apocryphal. I have no idea, but from what I've heard, like Gandhi's was set to 0, basically, like just not aggressive at all. But then there were certain conditions that would like lower a person's aggression rating, and if you triggered one of those to Gandhi, it would like roll back to be like hyper aggressive.
Oh my gosh!
like turning a clock back one notch, it becomes like 1259 or whatever. You would turn it to like the highest possible level, and so he would be like super nukes. But in the newer ones, I think it's like that they made him just prioritize peace. And if you're prioritizing peace above everything else, it kind of makes sense to be like, everyone should have nukes. And then we won't kill each other because we'll all be afraid of killing each other.
I mean, sure, that's a way to do it.
So yeah, like they've had little ways of coloring the personalities of the world leaders before, but it sounds like they're sort of going a lot deeper on that this time.
Yeah, and like they're giving some of the world leaders like secret agendas is what they call them. So like, for Teddy Roosevelt, like I think Americans are a newer thing for Civ, maybe not, no, they introduced new units for the Americans, I think, so that's why they were kind of focusing on that. And so, like, they, for example, for him, they're like, his secret agenda could be to build up the biggest navy or, stuff like that. And if you can figure it out, then I guess it awards you extra stuff. I wasn't 100% sure on what the consequences are of that. But, yeah, it's...
what counts as figuring it out? Do you, like, call them on it? Or are you like, oh, you're trying to do this? And they're like, oh, yeah, got me. I was trying to reach space or whatever, like...
Yeah, I don't know. We didn't really... They didn't really show us any of that, and I didn't really get to see any of that. But I do know that they are playing with civics a lot more, and a lot more with diplomacy and stuff like that. So that's cool. Otherwise, it's Civ. Like, if you like Civ, you'll probably like Civ 6.
So would you say it is a Civ-ass Civ game?
Yep. That's a very, very good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's how we do it around here.
I haven't engaged with Civ in a while, so this could be completely off base. But the way I've sort of perceived it is like it's a 4X and there's multiple ways to win, but war is like sort of the main way, Like that's kind of how it feels to me, where it's like war is usually what happens. That's kind of usually the way the things go.
It's usually the most interesting.
The most easily understandable way that everybody's like, yeah, I understand the concept of destroying everyone, And so like diplomacy and space victories and things like that, or culture victories.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
once I've done the war victory, I want to like test myself and try to do these other things. It doesn't really feel like they were all on an even playing field before.
Right. No.
But when you think about it, I mean, listen, this isn't Catan, right? Like, cornering the world through control of like grain isn't interesting, because like if you compare that to the path that lets you make nuclear-powered mechs, I'm going to go with the nuclear-powered mechs.
Yeah, of course. And it's just funny to have like Abraham Lincoln or some like some famously like very like measured person be like, I'm going to wipe out every civilization except for my own.
Yeah, it's funny, and there's some weird like anachronisms with that. So like because it obviously starts you off in like the Bronze Age or whatever, like kind of before that, and like I'm there with my little warriors with their slings and their sticks, and like I'm there, and all of a sudden Teddy Roosevelt shows up, and I'm like, whoa, like this is okay, sure. Yeah, so, it's Civ though. I agree with you, Steve. Like, I was huge into Rise of Nations when I was in high school. Like, I played that game ridiculously. And like that game is pretty much focused on conquest, and it's just always more interesting. You get to the modern age, you build the ICBM, you win everything. Like, that's just what everybody played for. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know. I know that they have introduced like I said, like the new civic system and stuff like that. I don't know how you draw people away from just building up a million army units and then just wiping everybody else out. They've retooled wonders a little bit, so like wonders have to be near a location that makes sense for them. So like Stonehenge has to be near like a mine or like a rock resource kind of thing, and like the pyramids have to be built on a desert tile. So it's like they're trying to like infuse some realism with that. Huh. It's still always way more fun to watch your army go at it with another one, though. Like, that's just how I play it. But yeah, it's Civ. Cool. Like I said, you like Civ, you'll probably dig it.
Yeah,
I like Civ.
In October, I think October. So what else have you been occupying your time with? Has there been anything other than that Civ preview event, which you can check out the preview on shacknews.com? I'll just plug it. But what else have you been playing?
Doom.
I think we've all, I guess before Overwatch invaded Brian's life, at least, we've been playing some Doom. I actually, like, when I got my Overwatch code, like, I wanted to play it, but then when I turned on my PlayStation, I realized that I had left a stage of Doom unfinished, and I was like, how you have like the suspend feature on PS4, and I'm like, damn it, I need to make it through the rest of this stage. Anyway,
I started playing it at like 11:30 last night, and come about 1 o'clock in the morning, I was like falling asleep playing it, and I'm like, I gotta finish this mission. Oh, it's so good.
I've had you on since Doom came out, so yeah, share. Let's dish about Doom.
It's so good. I think I might actually write about this too. They've found a way to take what was a huge cultural touchstone in the 90s and still make it relevant today. And they did that through kind of pointing out how dumb it is, and it revels in it, and that's what makes it so fun. Like
Yeah.
the intro to it is so good when he just like destroys the little comm with the scientist guy, and then it cuts right to the title screen. I'm like, that's really good. And at times the shotgun load sound, like the pump with it. Oh man, it's so good. Yeah, it feels amazing. Like it plays. It kind of like throws away classic shooter controls, right? Like you can't duck, there's no reload to it. It's just run around and shoot. It's run around and shoot. And like zooming in, like there's no iron sights. It's your secondary function for your weapon, which is awesome. And it's like super fast paced. It doesn't feel like gotta get to cover, gotta be careful. Like it's not.
I think it's really funny how on consoles at least they mapped some of the more interesting functions of the game. They mapped to buttons that you're used to doing things in other games. Yeah. So the first time you hit reload, you're like, what the?
No, nothing happens. I know.
It's not doing anything, or it's after you found the chainsaw and you're like, what the? There's a chainsaw. Or like when you first aim down iron sights, you're like, huh? I think it's like a clever little way to signal to the player like, hey, this is different. Like
and that happened with the charge pistol. Like at the very beginning, like I went to like zoom in. And all of a sudden, I see like the reticle is like, there's like a thing loading on it, and then I'm like, oh, this is way slower. Oh, it's a secondary fire. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's what this is.
And nobody does secondary fires anymore. Whatever happened to that? That used to be a thing.
I don't know. It's brilliant though. I really love it.
It's ridiculous. That whole game is ridiculous. Like I didn't think Doom would be like on my short list for Game of the Year. Like,
no.
If you had asked me last year, I'd be like, nah. But
it's got it. Like I have a hard time. Because I was thinking about this, I have a hard time believing that any game is going to, one, be as surprising as Doom, and two, like really even like because when we talk about first-person shooters, a lot of it's about campaigns, right? I mean, that's what one of the big things Overwatch is being dinged for, which I think is kind of unfair, but we'll come back to that.
We will, yeah.
But I honestly do not see how any game is going to be able to do a better first-person shooter campaign this year. I'd love to be proven wrong. But like playing this, there's just so much going on.
But I think it depends
streamlined and well done.
There's nothing else like Doom.
Yeah.
No.
And it's in a very conscious way where it's like, look, there are other ways to do shooters. It's like Bethesda like smacked the industry with a chainsaw gun, and it's like, look, you can
There's
do shooters.
no chainsaw gun in the game. That's something they need to fix.
You can do shooters in other ways, or a plasma rifle. I don't know. Like you can do shooters in other ways that are not like. You can do something that's a throwback. You don't always have to be chasing Call of Duty and chasing Battlefield. You can do other things.
And I think, I don't know, I think Doom is doing something very different from other games. Like, Doom is, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. Like, Doom is a playable metal album. Like, that's just what it is, and I don't want every game to be Doom, No, like I don't want all my first-person shooters to be goofy, kind of self-aware, really just brutal first-person shooters. That's not what I want. I want games to have their own identity, and I want them to do it very well.
I think the way that David put it in our review is, and I'm going to misquote him here, but I'm trying to get the general idea. Basically, we don't want every shooter to be exactly like Doom, but we want. What I would kind of hope is that it sends a message to the industry of variance and creativity, like try different things, try weird things in the shooter space.
That is not the lesson they will take away.
No, they'll be like, we need more blood and demons.
It's like Deadpool, right? That movie comes out. The lesson's now like, have movies being made by people who care about the characters and care about getting the characters right. It's about, how can we make more R-rated superhero movies, right?
Yeah.
Like they never take away the right lesson.
How can we curse more in this movie?
Yeah. How can we make Superman an R-rated movie?
Yep. The thing that I love about Doom, and we all love Doom here. But it's exhilarating in a way that a lot of shooters aren't. Like a lot of shooters, you run for cover, you hide, you pop out, you shoot and stuff. The way this encourages constant movement is exhilarating, and also just the way they intentionally overwhelm you. I didn't. I don't think I told this story on the. I think this has actually happened since the last podcast, so I haven't told it on the story on the podcast before. But they'll introduce a new enemy type. and you're like, because there are distinct battles in this game where like you finish a battle and then the room is clear and then there's nothing else coming for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's
Yeah,
like there's a set number of enemies. So like they'll introduce a new enemy type and you'll be like, oh man, that's really tough, and you'll take it down and feel really proud of yourself. And then the next wave of that battle starts, and it's like 3 more of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I kind of get like mad at the game. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
it's
but, like,
your character.
The first time I use a chainsaw on the big guy, and then I realize, oh wait, there's 3 more right after him. It makes me rethink my strategy the next time. And it tests you.
Yeah, it does. And the Doom guy is like ridiculously overpowered. Like if you look at the other enemies, other shooters that tend to be a little more not skill based, but a little more self-serious, you're kind of on an even playing field with the enemies. In Doom, you are so much more powerful than any of them.
Oh,
so
yeah.
to make up for
You're
that,
shredding demons like paper.
Exactly. So yeah, like the glory kills are ridiculous. You're just like smashing heads, and it's just like there's nothing to it. And so their way of getting around that is to throw more enemies at you, which does it makes you feel like you're just running around just ripping shit. Like,
it's a symphony of death when you really get into your groove in that game.
Oh yeah. But yeah, it's awesome. I'm loving it.
Great.
Like I said, it is a game defined by the fact that the reload button for any other shooter is replaced by a chainsaw button. So
that says everything you need to know right there.
Yep. Reloading takes away precious demon killing time. We can't have that.
And the chainsaw comes up pretty fast too. It's like. All right, so Brian.
Yeah.
What have you been playing?
It was basically Doom.
What have you been playing as of like a few days ago before Overwatch came out? Just Doom?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically been Doom and Overwatch, although I will say I went on a bit of a Blizzard bender over the weekend, and I played a bunch of Diablo. I hadn't actually cleared Lord of Destruction, or not Lord of Destruction, that's Diablo 2. Reaper of Souls is the one. I had it on PC. I had beaten it on PlayStation 4 already, but I hadn't done it on PC yet, so I went and cleared that. So I started doing some rifts. I played some Heroes of the Storm, and I'm excited to play some more of that now that I have Tracer, thanks to the Overwatch Origins whatever. So yeah, I went on a bit of a the thirst was so real I had to do something. So I played a bunch of Hearthstone and Heroes and Diablo.
Just so you can see the Overwatch logo on the back of a Hearthstone card. You're like, it's giving me my face.
But I didn't even have that till Tuesday, till Monday night. Like
I've been seeing that around though. I've been seeing that around for months. People having that card back.
Well, it's because if you pre-ordered the digital version on PC, you got all that stuff early. I got the physical copy for the box. So
I think there was some other card back I got that somebody friended me just so they could ask me how I got the Overwatch card back, and I was like, that's not Overwatch. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even remember what it was. It was like StarCraft or something.
Well, I guess we can talk about Hearthstone for like 30 seconds.
No, we don't. I wasn't going to.
I've had a lot of people add me after games, and I never add them back. Is that proper etiquette? Because I don't want to talk to random people on the internet.
I usually add them back, and once in a while they're nice people, but most of the time they're just pissed off at you.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I don't want them to be like, you're cheating, you're using a net deck, and like, so what?
Most of the time they're gonna call you a word that I won't say, but a disparaging word for a gay person, and then they unfriend you.
I don't want to do that.
That's most of the time what these.
I barely want to talk to my friends online. I don't want to talk to random strangers.
But once in a while, I will add somebody, and then they'll be like, oh man, that was a really cool play, or like, oh man, I almost had you, and I'll be like, yeah, GG, and so like, I've had some positive experiences. If somebody messages me just to troll me, I just message back, well met. And then I do it over and over again until they unfriend me. That's my strategy. Anyway, speaking of card games, this is the only other thing I'm going to talk about, because Doom was on my list, obviously. But the only other thing I was going to talk about is Skylanders Battlecast, which is not great. What
is that?
I tried it out a little bit yesterday. I haven't played a ton of it, so obviously these are very first impressions. I'm going to be working up some sort of longer form impressions after I get some more time with it. But when you're choosing between covering Overwatch or Battlecast, I mean, the choice is pretty obvious. So Skylanders Battlecast is sort of their take on a card game. It's a little bit card gamey in that you have decks and you build a deck of, however many cards, 30 I think it probably is. So In that way, it's like a card game. In a lot of other ways, it's not. And for the most part, it's very RPG-like. The setup is you're seeing your Skylanders on one side, you're seeing the enemies on the other side. There's a frontland Skylander and a frontline enemy, and those are the two that are actually going to be taking damage most of the time unless you use special abilities. The backline ones are like for swapping out when you need to. And yeah, it's got some interesting ideas of how to pull off an RPG card game hybrid, I guess. But it's also kind of overcomplicated, which is weird for a game that's meant for children.
I was just gonna ask that. Like, who is this for? Like,
I don't know. That's what's like Hearthstone. Not to talk more about Hearthstone, but the reason Hearthstone got so popular is because it simplified everything, and there's a lot of flexibility and skill that can be had within a simple framework. Skylanders was like taking the basic framework of Hearthstone. Like, you can look at the cards, and it's essentially the same. It's like, this costs this many mana, it adds this much attack to your hero, or whatever. Like, it's very similar in that way, but they also introduce gear that you can equip on your characters until it gets destroyed or overridden by another piece of gear. They introduce relics. You can use counter gear. It's called like nega gear or something like that to like counteract your opponent's gear. And the relics like stay active until your opponent targets it and destroys it. So it's like overcomplicating like kind of simple thing.
So they made a card game aimed at predominantly what I'm assuming is a much younger audience and made it super complicated.
Yes, they made it exceedingly complicated. Even just going through the tutorial, I went through the regular tutorial and the advanced tutorial, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm understanding all this stuff, but like when it came time to build a deck, they're like, all right, now you're free to build a deck. I'm like, I don't know. Like, you introduced too many things. I don't know what makes a deck good. And
the weird thing is, though, like I wonder if like kids might be the perfect audience for this, because kids have this ability to like memorize stuff and
That's
like
true.
understand
kids
these.
Min-max Pokemon all the time.
Yeah, I can't figure this stuff out. I hear people talk about like Pokemon training. I'm like, what are you even like? How did you figure this out? Like, this is I do not care enough. I don't know. Maybe it's perfect for them. Like, Hearthstone is nice because it's like, I don't have to put much thought into it. I'm getting lazy in my old age.
My other sort of reservations about it are mostly technical. For one thing, on an iPad 2, which is the one I have, it's kind of an older iPad, but it reads books and plays Hearthstone just fine, and that's mostly what I need it for. Like, it doesn't run very well. It's sort of choppy and slow, and maybe on newer iPads it performs better. But that's something to consider if you have an older device. The other thing is the card aspect is not very well implemented. You can buy actual cards. That's how they do the toys to life thing in this game. They're just cards, which I guess you could play the game with the actual cards in real life if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, because for how complicated it is, it would be even more complicated if you had to like keep track of your own health and everything.
Yeah.
But like, the idea is you buy these cards for some reason, if you want to collect the physical cards, and then you can scan them into the game and they become part of your game's collection. And if you get multiple copies of a card, you can scan multiple ones and it like upgrades the card to be like a gold or silver foil thing.
I actually kind of like that idea. That's not
like
bad.
That's kind of cool. But the scanning doesn't work. Like, I haven't gotten it to work because it insists on using the front-facing camera instead of the back-facing camera on the iPad. And I'm trying to like hold the card and the iPad steady towards each other while also like eyeing it up, and they're like, hey, that's too shaky, like put the card down on a flat surface. I'm like, if I do that, I can't point the screen at it and see what I'm doing. Like, this is an idiotic system. So I have not actually successfully scanned a single card. Every time I try, it gives me an error of some kind. I actually need to check out like the user reviews on iTunes to see if this is a widespread problem, if a lot of people are complaining about it, but that's kind of annoying. Also, just something, this is like a general rant about something that's kind of tangentially connected. Something that annoys me in RPGs that I realized while playing Battlecast that Hearthstone doesn't do is adding meaningless zeros to the end of health bars. Mm-hmm. Like, you can have a character that has 30 health and have them damaged for 1 or 2 or 3 damage, and it's fine. You don't need to make it 300 health and 10 or 20 or 30 damage. That's pointless. Right. There's no reason to do that. When all of your things are multiples of 10, there's no reason to ever do that. I notice that in a lot of RPGs, and it just always annoys me because it feels like they're inflating the numbers for no real reason. Anyway, it's weird. It's a weird game, and I don't really like it very much.
I, for one, am shocked, just absolutely shocked, to find out that this cash-in card game released at the tail end of this franchise's popularity and relevance might not have been super well thought out.
I mean, I like Skylanders. I was hoping to like it. I like Skylanders and I like Hearthstone, so I was like, this is worth a try.
See, I was joking when I said Skylanders is trying to make something out of every single video game genre ever.
They kind of are.
For real. Like, they've done Kart Racer, they've done third-person action game, now they've done Hearthstone card game, collectible card builder thingy, right? Like, calm
it's
down.
Weird. It's very strange.
So, can I offer
you
the
also
next
have those
one?
free-to-play hooks like, oh, every day you get a spin, and you can spin for a free, card or some currency or whatever.
Ugh.
I don't know.
So the next one has to be Skywatch, right? Like that's got to be the next thing.
It'll be
Overlanders.
I was going to say it'll be what's that, Boom Beach or whatever, like Clash of Clans. It'll be
the base
Clash of
buildings.
Skies. Yeah, why not?
I just like the idea of Skylanders being ultimately the kid version of every Activision property. So, like Skylanders, Call of Duty. I'm sure they have other things, but I'm drawing a blank on them right now.
Yeah, I mean, Skylanders is still one of their major pillars, I think, in terms of financials. Whenever they release their financials, they're like, Blizzard and Call of Duty and Skylanders are doing great. Let's not talk about the other stuff.
Well, they've got, they probably Disney
and
Infinity
Destiny,
following out
Destiny's
probably. Yeah, it probably opened up a lot more market for them. So.
Yeah. All right, we don't have to ever talk about Skylanders Battlecast again.
What if we
I feel like I've covered it.
I was going to say we should.
So. Like the weekly Battlecast check-in.
Yeah.
Have you played more of it? Nope. Okay, moving
Absolutely.
on. All right, let's move on to the game that we've all sort of been playing, and also the big topic. Overwatch. Overwatch is out this week. Too much fanfare. Much more fanfare than you see for, I think, most games. That's fair to say.
Well, to be fair, Overwatch isn't most games, Stephen.
Please try to take all of Brian's statements with a grain of salt.
Yeah, understand that. Okay, so just
he is not an objective voice on this.
Let me state why this game matters and has clicked with me so much. I have been there are very few companies I can say I am a legitimate fanboy for. Okay, and I think I can say this because I'm not quite on the same hook for objectivity. Yeah. And I would say more than Nintendo, it's Blizzard. Out of everything Blizzard's made, I think I've only not liked 2 games. And it's not even that I didn't like them, it's that I think that there are better ways to do them now.
Blizzard makes a lot fewer games, and therefore a lot fewer clunkers. Like when Blizzard releases a game,
it's probably going to be good.
Yeah, I mean they polish the hell out of it. That's sort of their thing.
Yeah, so since middle school, this has been a reliable thing. So I've been a fan for a very long time, and the prospect of them launching a completely new IP, new characters, new universe, the whole thing, instead of spinning off Warcraft again, that is a very exciting prospect. So I was kind of already intrigued, but I still wasn't really into it until I played the beta, and I then needed it in my life. There was no way I didn't need it in my life.
The way that you're talking about this
reading it poetry.
I was gonna say the way that you're talking about this is very similar to when people convert to a new religion.
It's not wrong. Yeah. You're not far off.
No, I got audited this week, and it was really
more me. It's like I was lapsed, and now I've come back to the graces of medicine.
And you looked behind you, and there was only one set of footprints in the sand.
That's when mercy carried me.
So yeah, I mean, before the way you sort of position this in the chatty, because for those who didn't read, Brian took big topic host creating duties this week.
Yeah, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. So before we get to that, because the way that you sort of contextualized it in the chatty was, let's talk about this in the context of the shooter genre, the shooter thing, and what this does differently and whether or not that will catch on in various ways. So before we talk about that as sort of the chin waggy thinking topic, let's just talk like general impressions. We've all had a few days with it. So Brian, as somebody that I know has been itching to talk about Overwatch, just in general.
Well, I mean, we went a whole week without talking about it, so I feel it's only fair that we come back to it. But yeah, it's held up very well. I think that you're seeing a lot of strategies and a lot of things change now that it's out in the wild, and I think probably more people are playing it than were before. It is still very good. I feel that, I don't know, my opinion really hasn't changed much. I think that everything that worked in the beta still works. I can see some things they might have changed or done a little bit differently already. But I'm really excited because, to me, what I'm excited about is not just so much the game that launched Monday afternoon. I'm more excited about the game that it's going to be in a year or 2 years. Because that's the other thing about Blizzard.
Trademark is
they're
waiting for a very long time.
Well, they were supporting StarCraft, the original StarCraft, for 15 years or something like that. So I am very and this is the thing that's been funny, watching the reaction to it. And this is one of the many reasons I think that posts on the internet need to have some kind of identifier saying what your context is, what your frame of reference is. Because I see a lot of people saying, well, there's just going to be a Game of the Year edition down the road. I'm like, that's not how Blizzard does things. They've never done this that way.
Right.
There are a lot of people well, they're just going to abandon it in a year. That's not how Blizzard does things.
They don't abandon
it this way.
There might be.
How old are you?
They won't call it a Game of the Year edition, but there was the Diablo Ultimate edition. There might be something like that.
Yeah, but that was just more of a name they had to throw on a console release. Yeah. So it was just a name saying, okay, you've got the original game and the expansion in it.
It was also paired with a bunch of free updates to the game. If you had the game, you got a bunch of free updates that severely sounds negative, but in a very big impactful way changed some underlying systems.
Yeah, Diablo 3 now is not the game it was at launch, and I think that's been about 4 years since Diablo 3 launched. So 4 years from now, Overwatch is going to be significantly different, and it's good now. And
also, they have it
Diablo
built
3 wasn't necessarily at launch, but
Diablo was built for long-term play, but in a different way.
Yeah.
I feel like Overwatch is built for long-term play in the way that you build competitive things for long-term play, where you want there to be, dare I say the magic word, the esports scene. And Blizzard never
this is
actively pursues esports. Well, hold on, I'm going somewhere with this. Blizzard doesn't actively pursue esports. They sort of let it come to them. They just build a good game.
Because that's how esports works.
Yeah,
I hate it when people build games and go oh, it's going to be an esport.
But that's how it worked with Hearthstone. That's how it worked with Heroes of the Storm. They built in tools later to make it easier for people, but they didn't build it from the beginning thinking, okay, this is going to be the next big esport. So Overwatch feels like it's destined to be the next of that thing. It
doesn't even have competitive play technically in it yet. That's going to come.
Yeah, that's coming weeks. Next month. That's coming pretty soon. Yeah. But it's a team-based competitive game, which is something that is also fairly popular to watch. So I feel like that's around the corner. That's going to come, and that sort of thing invites them to support a game for longer because they know that there's still an audience and they're still engaged and they want to keep producing fresh content for this audience that's engaged.
Yeah, I see. Admittedly, I did not buy Overwatch. I did play the beta. Played several matches in that, and I like it. I respect it. I like what it has going for it. I think it's the new Team Fortress, and I think it's a better Team Fortress. The fact that they're able to balance that many characters and give them all very specific abilities that feel very different from one another is remarkable. It is not for me.
Which I totally respect. I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm not a big team-based shooter person. That's just not the kind of online games that I like to play. But
I'm usually not, but this one has caught my interest in some weird way. I don't know.
It comes back to Blizzard. Sure. Praise be Blizzard.
And like Brian said, maybe in a year I'll be different. Maybe I'll pick it up then. But as of right now, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, it's cool, but I don't roll with a crew of people online, and I think it would make a difference if I did. But I hate playing team-based stuff with randos. It's just not fun.
Especially the way you compared it to Team Fortress, I want to explore that a little bit. I've been noticing as I've been playing the analogs to Team Fortress, even the way that is it Zarya I might be pronouncing that wrong. But like
I
even the way
think it's Zarya. Even the way she carries herself is like, oh, she's the heavy from Team Fortress 2. Like,
Yeah.
But
she's exactly that, that body type and that kind of.
Well,
But
same
I
with
kind
the
of dig
engineer
Zarya better
too.
as a character. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
well,
Heavy's cool.
that's
but
what I mean. Like they took these archetypes from Team Fortress 2, and I think there's what, like 9 classes in Team Fortress, and like you've got Junkrat, who's like the demo man. You've got the I can't pronounce the troll's name, who's the engineer.
Torborn.
Yeah,
I think it's
you've got Farah, who it occurred to me, like, is the soldier. She's got the
Torbjorn.
rocket launcher, but they just gave her a rocket jump button, so that's no longer a thing that you have to like learn and be skilled at to do. So it's like taking all of these archetypes from Team Fortress and simplifying them and making them accessible, and then introducing another 10 on top of them, and that's going to catch some interest. Obviously, I mean, Team Fortress 2 has stuck around for years.
Yeah, and it's tough to do, and balancing of any kind, especially in a shooter like this, is going to be tough to do. So, like, the fact that they did it is awesome. It's also not surprising because, yeah, it's Blizzard. Like, Blizzard knows how to make games.
There were concerns about Tracer being overpowered at some point. I think that was some beta feedback.
I mean, I don't know. I still think that there's something.
I haven't had matches that I'm like cursing Tracer, so it's not like it stands out to me as overpowered.
I'm also not seeing as many Tracers as I did in the beta. Like, Tracer, like, because it used to be on the beta, you get like 2 or 3 Tracers on a team. It's like they have toned that down a little bit.
Now it's all a bunch of fucking Soldier 76s.
Yeah, but like I said, you're playing on console, and I think that that makes sense because he's the one most analogous to Call of Duty.
Yeah.
So,
and every time I get killed by a Reaper, I'm just like, oh, you're one of those.
Yeah, that guy's the guy that plays Reaper. Yeah,
one of those Reaper guys.
Yeah.
A friend of mine is really big into. I don't remember. Is it Roadhog? It's the like Mad Max looking character.
Yeah.
He seems pretty strong. I've
Roadhog's fun.
Definitely had some run-ins with him. I haven't actually played as him yet, but
a good Roadhog can change the course.
Yeah.
The way he grabs you kind of screws up, because my main so far is Farah, the soldier sort of rocket launching analog. The way he grabs you like totally just messes up her whole thing.
Because like his whole thing is he grabs, stuns, and pulls you in at close range to hit you with a close range weapon. Like that's he's very powerful that way.
Yeah.
And he's a tank too. Like he can take some damage.
So it sounds like we've talked about impressions quite a bit, and this is sort of naturally leading towards your questions about the larger shooter space. And we actually got a lot of discussion in the thread this week. I think because there was a misunderstanding about what you meant. Do you want to take that away?
All right, let's talk about the chatty. Apparently, they got the impression that I was saying Overwatch was the first game that ever didn't track kill-death ratio. I know it's not, but it is very rare to see a game that doesn't do that and doesn't actually have leaderboards at all. And the biggest thing is not that this didn't have that, it's that it's this popular and has gotten this much attention and is doing something that is really not intuitive to the shooter genre.
And also the way that just to piggyback on top of that, the way that it emphasizes it. There's a difference between being the first game to do something and designing your UI around it to really emphasize it. This game, more than most games, I can't say more than every shooter because I'm sure Chatty would be like, no, Steve's an idiot. This other shooter did it. But like more than most games, this shooter emphasizes with data, with tables and charts, saying like, hey, these 4 people really contributed to the team in various ways. And it expresses the idea that like it's not just getting the most kills. There's always at least one person on the leaderboard that's like, this person had the best kill streak, good for them. But there's also like, this person healed the most.
It emphasizes the team aspect of team-based shooters. This is a thing I think that it draws a lot from Heroes of the Storm. And now, again, please let me preface this by saying that I know Heroes of the Storm is not the only MOBA that tracks team stats.
It's the first one. You heard it here first.
It was the one that Blizzard made. And if you look at how the characters are set up and you look at how the game is set up, they're drawing a lot of inspiration from Heroes of the Storm. They kind of made Heroes of the Storm, took that same sort of like, not so much a MOBA, more of like a team brawler mentality, an objective base, and they made it a shooter. You know, the like they've each character has an ultimate and a few other abilities. It's very much that. And Heroes of the Storm was very much kind of saying, all right, well, you didn't get that many kills or anything, but look, you played a tank. Here's how much damage you absorbed. Here's how much siege damage you did, or here's how much healing you did, or whatever. And that, I think, shows that, hey, there are ways to be good and to win games and to help your team than just going out and getting all the kills, which is, I think, a very important thing to reinforce in a game like this. Even if it's not necessarily the first game they did.
So much in the UI encourages people to explore other characters.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, if you have a game that basically just emphasizes like, hey, this person got the most kills, you know, like everyone's going to go towards the class that gets the most kills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Blizzard doing what Blizzard does best, which is creating games that people who are not familiar with it in any way can get in and grasp it, and also people who are familiar with it in a way can take it and run with it and explore deeper systems within it. Like, it's what they do. That's their MO.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing, like, Blizzard never creates. They iterate and make it streamlined and make it really accessible. Like you said, like that's, and you know, people will say, well, this is just Team Fortress 2, or this is just like, I know it's not.
Well, it's not.
It's just incredibly well done.
Right, and it's more. It makes more sense. Like if you go to jump in and play Team Fortress 2 now, because the game's been out forever, like you're not even going to know exactly where you fit in, because everybody's been playing it so much, and it has such a dedicated base at this point that it's like you're almost not welcome. Like,
and there's so many like different variations in weapons.
Hello?
Looks like you went quiet.
Yeah.
Brian, where'd you
no.
go?
Oh no, it's happening again. Brian's gone mute. Well, while he jiggles the handle until it works again, I'm gonna read some comments from Chatty. Some of these we've actually touched on a little bit. Firefly pointed out the lack of emphasis on KDR is a small part of how Overwatch is more new player friendly. The scorecards do more to show all of the other valuable plays a player can and does make. There's much more emphasis on communicating the entire oeuvre. I like to use that word. The oeuvre of good play to players. Brian, do we have you back? Yes, we have you back.
Okay.
Back from the Phantom Zone.
And
yeah, I don't know. I'm just like.
Sergian said it slightly less charitably, which I kind of liked. I think it's funny. He just said, like, multiple people have commented on how friendly Overwatch is to the fragile gamer ego.
Yep. I mean, I agree with that. That's a great way to put it. Like, I get so frustrated with these games sometimes because I'm like, I'm not this terrible. But Overwatch is just like, yeah, you know what? You're not that terrible, buddy. You did good. You can do better. There's always room to improve, but you helped your team in some way, even if it's a small way, okay? Buck up, champ. Here's a loot box.
Like, yeah, and well, that's the other thing. He says you get a free virtual gift box with loot that you can collect and buy. Loot is like such a brilliant thing to put into this game. Like, obviously shooters have had loot before, but the random pack aspect of it, where you get like the little exciting, and you have to hold down the button for a little while. You're like, oh, the anticipation. Like
you don't do that on you don't do that on PC, and I wish you did, because that's the one thing I liked about one of the things I liked about the console beta is like, ooh boy, it's
yeah. Like, on PS4 you have to hold down the X button for a solid like I think 2 seconds, which isn't that
long. It's like
unwrapping
a gift.
It's long enough to be like, oh, because I think they learned from Hearthstone that like there's something exciting about the animation of the thing opening. And when
how dumb is that? Like it's so
it's super stupid.
but it works.
Oh,
it's a weird psychological trick, especially the way that you can see when the things pop up in the air and start falling back down. You can see like, oh, there's 2 purples in there. You know, like you get a little like, ooh.
Yeah, when I see a purple or an orange, I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Very
yeah. So
I haven't gotten anything really good yet, but still, it's very thrilling.
Yeah. I sprung for a few packs, I will admit, and I got a couple legendaries, and it wasn't for anyone that I actually used, but it was still exciting to see them pop up.
Yeah, I bought 2 packs because I had $2 on my Battle.net account. I'm like, well, I'm never going to be able to use this for anything else, so.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Buy a PlayStation Vita?
You can't buy Heroes of the Storm Heroes. You can't buy Hearthstone packs. I'm just going to go ahead and do this.
So, yeah, from there, Surgeon and our lovable Trapped in Suit got into a tiff about not being original, which I think we've already kind of addressed, so I won't go back into it. But that was basically the the length of the comments. Also, Dr. Games, you were fired.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to be fired when I don't technically work here, but
yeah, I don't work here and I don't get paid anything. So
yeah, like this is mostly volunteer work, but
But yeah, Surgeon, in his continued debate with Trapped in Suit, continued to make good points. He basically said the removal of a scoreboard is very new and honestly an interesting game design decision. I can only assume it's designed to focus more on the team than individuals. It obscures teammates who are performing well versus performing poorly. And that brings up a good point that we can talk about. It's not just pushing people away from just going for, okay, how can I max out my KD ratio? It's also like, if somebody's not doing as well, if they're newer, it might minimize abuse of that poor person because there's not a big flashing sign that's like, this person was useless,
Right.
So very smart little tweaks to the genre conventions like that.
And that's just it. Like, there is a theory in like literature and in fiction writing that there's no such thing as a new story, just new ways of telling it, and it's 100% the case. If you strip everything down to its basic core elements, it is all the same, but there are different ways to play with it and tweak it so that it's different. Like the fact you can't complain about something not being original, in my mind, because I mean, I guess there's a fine line, right? Like if they completely had just ripped off one thing and then just slapped a new game logo on it, I guess that's one thing. But in this case, like, there's more than one team-based shooter, and it's okay to make another one, and it's okay to put your own spin on it. Like that's how creativity works. So like, yeah, it's I don't know. Like I said, I admire it. I'll probably give it a go again in a few months or so, see if anything's changed. But
when they release the Game of the Year edition.
Yeah.
So we need to actually move on pretty soon, but I want to address this last question that your other questions, Brian, sort of came up in the course of natural conversation, but this last one that you asked, I don't think really has. Are hero-based shooters in which you learn classes and characters like fighting game combatants the next big thing? And I think the answer is absolutely. Like, we've seen 2 attempts of that in the last, couple weeks.
yeah.
And one of them was really good, and one of them was, okay. But still, it sort of feels like Team Fortress 2 took that idea being, oh, Soldier is Soldier. His name is Soldier, But they gave it personality. And now we're seeing sort of the next step along that scale where it's like, no, they fit into those types, but they also have, names and backstories and, personalities of their own.
I'm careful to call it the next big thing. I think we'll see more of them. I think bigger than that, I think the first-person shooter is changing, and that makes me very happy because it's not all grimdark, gritty, grizzled dudes.
Yeah, I mean we're seeing a lot more shooters. There's Doom, which is grimdark but in a funny way, to be honest.
Right.
Like even things like Cliff Bleszinski's next shooter, the Lawbreakers. Like that is also like. I don't think the characters are as memorable as Overwatch. In fact, right now I don't remember any of them. But it is like distinct character designs where it's like this character has a name and it is this person.
And to be fair, I think it is unfortunate that Battleborn and Overwatch have been compared to each other so much because they are very different games. But yeah, like if we're talking about unfortunately, it's a conversation and a comparison that just gets invited by virtue of proximity and similarity.
They have some passing similarities. They're not really very similar as games, but
no, not at all.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, you could say, I'm sure you're thinking right now. You're not saying it, Steve. I'm sure you're thinking right now. Overwatch is better.
One is better than the other one. Like somebody asked me that on Twitter yesterday, and I was like, I'm enjoying the first few hours of Overwatch more than I enjoyed the first few hours of Battleborn. That's all I can really fairly say.
That's diplomatic.
So maybe I'll burn out on Overwatch like I burned out on Battleborn 2, but I don't get the sense that I will because Battleborn I was sort of feeling merely okay about from the beginning. So, at any rate, we can move on. Oh wait, one more thing. I wish this game had a story. I know it doesn't try to have a story.
Yeah.
But it's almost complimentary to the game to say I wish it had a story because the world that they've created and the characters that they've created are so like charming and cool, and I'd like to see more of it. And it's weird. It's a weird disconnect how the game opens with this like rousing speech from this gorilla wearing glasses. Like this rousing speech, like the world needs heroes. Damn it, let's go out and do some good for the world. And it's like, yeah, let's go and kill other heroes.
Let's protect the payload.
Yeah.
like it, the actual gameplay doesn't really match with that rousing speech.
I think didn't you say that it has a premise and not a story?
Yes, that was in my review in progress. I was like, it doesn't really have a story; it has a premise.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
The lore. Here's the thing that's crazy about Overwatch is that if you look at the lore, you look at the characters, you look at how they're designed, they are basically making like a modern G.I. Joe. Like they are basically making an action figure line that just happens to be a video game. Or
a comic book. I mean, like you can see this as comic books. The animation quality of those shorts they've been releasing is like insane.
Yeah.
Those are like insanely high quality, like little animated shorts.
Like here's the thing.
To see more of that, you know?
Like they're not. Those shorts they're going to do more. They've said that this is the Soldier 76 one that came out over the weekend is the end of the first season, but there will be more.
See, what I'd really like them to do, and this might not even be in the cards, but the way that Hearthstone introduced single-player content was they had this multiplayer game, and then they're like, and you can just buy a single-player little mission pack, basically. Like, if they did that for Overwatch, I would be super happy. Just give me, like, a little like, okay, it's 5 missions that you can play through, you know, and it gives you a little bit of story in this world. Like, that would be cool. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of okay with just having an implied story. You know, it's... Like, I get what you're saying. I don't think everything has to have a campaign.
I don't think I want to ding the game for it necessarily, but it's something that I just want more of. It's not.
Yeah, like I'd rather.
This game sucks because X. It's like I like this game a lot, and I wish it had more of this.
Sure.
Like there's something to be said for it, you know, focusing on the one thing it wanted to do instead of trying to, you know, split time between two things. But I think you're right. Like it is just a shame that they have this rich character and these rich worlds and these really well developed characters, and you don't really get to know them all that well.
And
like you have to look at the
kind of weird how this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the game that was sort of tied to their follow-up of World of Warcraft. They were like, we were making an MMO. It sort of fizzled. It became something kind of like Overwatch. Yeah.
So
I wonder
curious,
what that would have been.
I'm hoping that at some point, because I know the collector's edition, which I'm kind of sad I didn't get now, even though it has the Soldier 76 statue. I think Soldier 76 is useless. But after seeing that, like I saw the art book and like the way they talk, like they have like little stories from the development and that sort of thing. Like if they put out like a nice book, like a coffee table book that says, okay, here's what Titan was, here's what we draw, here's what the premise was, here's what we drew from it, here's how we developed that into Overwatch. I'd buy that in a heartbeat. Like I'm fascinated by how this game came to be. That would be something I hope that they're working on. Like my feeling is I don't think they understood how big this game was going to be. And it is kind of astonishing that a game this big does not have as much merchandise as they can possibly put out. So I'm guessing we'll see a lot of that by the end of the year.
In the next year or so. We'll definitely
but put me down for it, like, because I love Blizzard art books, so I will definitely pick that up.
So we've got our newsy bits and a quick game to get to, but first, a word from our sponsor.
Speaking of books, Steve,
what a segue.
Audible.com is offering the listeners of the Shack News Chattycast, that's right, an exclusive deal just for you listening and watching right now if you're on the video feed, a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial to check out their service. Tons of great books on games, tech, hundreds of other topics to choose from, over 150,000 titles. Can you imagine that? That's like a lot. And you can check them all out with your free audiobook download. Go to audibletrial.com/chattycast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/chattycast, and it would be very, very swell of you if you did that.
Blizzard has done Diablo books, right?
They have.
So maybe one day they'll do an Overwatch book, and they can listen to it.
So here's the thing. Like I am a gross enough nerd where I have read Warcraft novels, I have read Starcraft novels. I haven't read the Diablo ones, but I've read the Diablo comics. So if they put that stuff out, like, listen, right now, Blizzard, I will tell you right now, I will write an Overwatch comic. Okay?
You're recommending ways for them to take your money. Yeah.
I'm saying, like, I will write it for free, just to make sure that it exists. That is a thing that can be purchased, and I can read and get more of these characters in this world.
I have to think that's coming.
That's the kind of passion that this engenders. Yeah, I mean, it's so comic booky that it seems like it has to.
Yeah, as someone who loves comic books, I mean, I've got the Reverse Flash shirt on. Like, this is such a comic book thing that if it's not on the shelves at my local shop by the end of the year, I will be very surprised.
I would be shocked if Dark Horse doesn't come up with some partnership with Blizzard to publish some Overwatch.
I mean, like, even right down to, like, the premise being about, like, this group of heroes that then got outlawed. It's like, oh, okay, so it's the Incredibles.
Right.
It's the premise of the Incredibles. Anyway, okay, newsy bits. I only have 2, and they sort of tie together, so I'll run through them very quickly. E3 Live is opening this year. It's an E3 adjacent event. They are not letting the public into the E3 show floor. They're letting them in nearby. I think like next door somewhere. So it allows the public to get in and play the games for free. The tickets are already sold out, so this is more raising it to talk about what that means for the industry. Also, Nintendo is inviting fans to play The Legend of Zelda on I think the first day of E3. They have to line up for tickets like 3 days earlier. But so basically, all this to say, 2 major events, both E3 Live as a whole entity and Nintendo in particular, letting the public into their show. We already know that EA was going to be doing this with EA Play. This seems to be a big trend this year, so I wanted to quickly get you guys' thoughts on that trend.
Am I still here? Can you still hear me?
Yes, yep. I can still hear you.
Okay, good. Because I'm having some difficulties.
I was rambling for the last like 5 minutes, so I don't know if you were trying to talk.
No. So I don't know. Like, to me, I think that this whole idea of E3, and this is going to be weird, but you know, as press people, you can tell me if you think I'm on base or not. I think that the ultimate end goal of E3 was always going to be like the Willy Wonka sort of thing, where we open up the vaults to the public once a year. You can come and play and all that sort of thing. Because the utility of E3 as a press thing, to me, as an outside viewer, seems to be pretty much gone, right? Like it's
on
dwindling.
Its way out.
Yeah. I mean,
the value to the audience is tremendous.
The way they started streaming the press conferences was like the first step towards that. But yeah, it seems like more and more diluted every year.
Well, I mean, you look at Gamescom. Like, Gamescom is, I don't know if it is definitively but it is definitely one of the largest video game events in the world. It's bigger than E3, and it's a public event. But they also have press conferences there. Like, Sony makes major announcements there. Like, it's like a European E3.
I think we're sort of seeing a shift in the way that publishers treat the press in general. And this isn't like an amazingly, insightful observation. I'm sure other people have made it and I've heard it elsewhere. But they're more pursuing, thought leaders, which may be media outlets like ours, but it also may be YouTubers or whatever. And so
I hate that term. I hate that term so much.
I know.
Do you prefer thinkfluencers?
Thinkfluencers, yeah. So
no,
like,
I don't.
Point is, I think the publishers are always going to have a space that some sort of velvet rope for people that they choose are worthy to spread their message, and as responsible journalists, it's our job to, let people know the ups and downs without just being like, hey, I got in for free, cool, good job. But I think that as they face more and more public, like Nintendo is doing, there's less and less room for us. Like this year at E3, they're showing one game. And I'm sure.
I mean, I wouldn't say that there's less.
I'm sure we're going to be all over it and write about it, but it's more. It's fun.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that there's less room so much as I say like things are just changing up a little bit. Like I think there's still room for press. Like, I kind of get really annoyed when people are like, games journalism is dying. Which, first off, it's not journalism. Please don't call it that. Second, no, it's just changing. Like the way that games are covered is changing, and that's fine. It's a good thing.
Well, that's what I mean by being thoughtfluencers.
No.
Let's move on.
Okay.
I'm sure that we can have a lot of, just in general, one of my pet peeves about games journalism, let's call it, is how obnoxiously. I know you do, but is how obnoxiously navel-gazy we get. I don't want to spend too long on this topic. I'm sure that we can get obnoxiously navel-gazy again sometime in the future.
That's fine.
So, Beat the Doc.
Yeah.
Part of the game where I put my friends against each other. Today's game is all about Overwatch. Since Blizzard can't be bothered to put a story in its game, we have to read about it on wikis and watch animated shorts.
I might actually do pretty well.
But
Yeah,
the individual
you're going to win.
backstories. But I feel like this is actually the first one that's been like very skewed in Brian's favor, and it's a real challenge to beat the doc.
It's all good.
So having said that, there's also no guarantee I'm going to win.
Because
I will probably find some way to lose.
Maybe we should handicap you. Like when you get one wrong, you get a negative point.
I like that.
Anyway,
I'll agree to it. Let's do it.
so okay. Well, those are the conditions. The individual backstories are pretty detailed, so I'm going to give a snippet of backstory, completely out of context, and you just tell me who it belongs to. To make it slightly trickier, I'm removing all gender references.
Ooh.
So I will use the they pronoun to refer to anyone if I need to.
It's very progressive. Then.
Yeah. What's the other they pronoun that people have suggested? Is it like Z?
Yeah, there's.
Yeah.
I don't know
Anyway,
it very well. Sure.
I'm going to say they because it's a word
That's
that already exists, and
That's fine.
and it serves the same function. Okay. Buzz in with your names when you are ready to answer. This character was the youngest to join Overwatch's flight program, but the aircraft malfunctioned and they went missing for several months. Oh,
I know about 3 characters, so I'm just going to say
trickier
names.
than I thought. Well, you have to say your name first to buzz in.
Oh, well, Cassidy. Over here.
The Pokemon rule.
Otherwise, I might confuse your voice with Brian.
That's right. Is it the crap? The lady with the rocket launcher, and she looks like Samus Aran.
You're thinking of Farah.
Yes.
Who is the best. No, it is not Farah.
Okay. There you go.
I love Farah.
She's cool. I played as her when I did it.
So my guess, I believe this is Diva.
No, it is not Diva.
Because she's the youngest, I think.
Diva is your name. Well, this is... that might have been slightly confusingly phrased, and I'm sorry. That was just like an origin story thing, like she was the youngest to join at the time. So it was Tracer. Tracer was the youngest to join Overwatch at the time.
All right.
And then, that's how...
I'll take my negative one. That's fine.
Slipstream powers and stuff, because that airplane went missing. All right. This character's home became an irradiated wasteland due to a conflict with the Omnics, which, robots.
Cassidy.
Yes.
Roadhog?
Roadhog is actually
Yay!
is actually one acceptable answer. The other one is Junkrat.
They're basically bros.
I learned while researching this that I'm like, oh wait, that one has 2 answers, so I'll just make those 2 valid. Okay. This character is curious about the world and nature, and largely avoids populated areas.
I'll say Brian.
Yeah.
Is that Zenyatta?
No, that is not Zenyatta. You get a negative point.
So I'm at -2 now. See, I told you there's a good way I was going to lose. There's a good chance
I don't know if that
lose.
first negative counts because that was just a guess after Cassidy had already guessed. But
is it that one robot that plays with birds?
I will give that to you. Yes, it is Bastion.
Oh, man, okay. That's right, the bird. Oh, God.
Because
See, I don't care about Bastion, so I haven't looked into his story.
His story is he was one of the models that basically destroyed everything when the Omnics were revolted, and so people do not trust him when they see him, and so he kind of avoids people.
Poor Bastion.
Yeah. All right, Cassidy taking a surprisingly commanding lead. This character, a member of a special task force to discover the root causes of climate change.
Oh, Buzz.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
It's Brian.
Brian?
It's May. It's May.
Hey, yes, it's May. You've dug out of the hole. You're at 0.
One of the most annoying characters in the game if she's played well.
Yeah. Because you'll be shooting her, and then all of a sudden, ice wall, and it's just like, well, fuck.
Not just that, but I get frozen constantly.
All right.
It's hard for me to be Diva.
It may be that you're playing Diva. And she's a tank.
Yeah.
All right. So Brian, you're at 0, I think, and Cass, you're at 2.
That's right.
This character needed.
Starting from the bottom. Now we're here. Got it.
Learn to accept themselves by studying under the monk Zenyatta. Character learned to accept themselves.
I'm gonna say Buzz.
Yes.
And I'm gonna say Winston because there's a darkness to him, and I think that he seems like the guy who'd benefit from inner peace.
Like you're thinking like a beast, like X-Men thing, right? Like
the gorillas that he was one of the gorillas that they were doing experiments on. They all like revolted and killed a bunch of humans, and he was like the only one that didn't. Yeah.
That is dark. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not Winston. It's... Cass, do you have a guess? We've been talking about nothing but Overwatch for the last, 2 weeks.
I'm trying to think of characters.
It's probably not one you're going to think of, I'll be honest.
Soldier 76.
No, it's Genji. Genji, he's
sure.
the cyber
Genji,
ninja.
okay,
He's uncomfortable with being part cybernetic until he talked to Zenyatta. All right.
That makes sense.
So bonus question, Brian, you can make it a tie if you get this. Name any 2 of the original Overwatch strike team members. You can use their real names or their code names.
So, okay. Soldier 76 is one of them because he was basically Captain America. And I will also say Winston.
No, Winston was not one of the originals. I'm sorry.
Really?
So the original 5, I think, were Soldier 76. Reaper was one of the originals.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Torbjorn. Basically, all of the old people were. Torbjorn, Reinhardt, and then 2 characters that we don't know that much about. Anna Amari, which is the mother of Farah, and Lio, who I don't think we know anything about.
Yeah, because I do remember Farah in the comic that's her comic. They talk about her mom being part of Overwatch, and she...
Yeah,
okay.
she was one of the original... The very, very first ones that wiped out the original...
I'll take the L.
So.
I'll take the L. It was deserved.
Yeah. We gave you a handicap, but I think even without the handicap, would you have still... I think it might have been tied.
I think Cassie probably would have still won.
Anyway.
This is such a stupid win.
I'm just going to name characters.
The bird. I'm basically a 5-year-old over here.
That's good enough. I mean, like I could.
The robot with the bird. If it makes you feel better, I would have accepted the robot with the bird as an answer from Brian too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So.
You have made better use of your time than I have the last few weeks. So I don't. Don't worry about it.
No.
So we have to get out of here. Brian, do you have a plug? Actually, you were on a podcast recently, weren't you? Or is that still coming?
I was on a podcast, yeah. We recorded with friends of the show, Phil Hornshaw and Nurk Hurwitz. No, it's Nick Hurwitz. They wrote a book about time travel. It's a very good book called So You Created a Wormhole, The Time Traveler's Guide to Time Travel. They have another one about space travel that I'm actually drawing a blank on the name of. They also have a podcast about time travel in movies and popular culture called Paradox. And I was on there to talk about X-Men and the X-Men continuity or lack thereof in time for the new X-Men movie coming out this weekend. So they tell me that should be up sometime tomorrow morning. So that's Paradox, the podcast. You can actually go to thetimetravelguide.com/Paradox podcast. You can check out some of the other ones, and that's where it'll be. So that
much sought after URL. I'm sure that time travelers from the future have come back and tried to search and been like, this seems helpful. So
I would buy that Elon Musk is a time traveler. Apropos of nothing, I'd buy it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have to somehow make a people mover with these primitive ape tools.
I need him to hurry up and make this train from San Francisco to Los Angeles, because that's going to make my life so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much easier than getting on a hollow metal tube and going into the air. So Cassidy, what have you been working on that you would like to plug real quick?
Well, as always, I got my Civ 6 previews up on Shack News, and I've got a bunch of other previews that just the embargoes haven't lifted yet, but they'll be going up over the next few weeks.
In the coming days, yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I also host a dumb geek culture podcast. It's called Super Jump Radio. There should be a new one going up today if I get around to it.
I need to listen to that. I will make it my mission to do that.
Okay, it's fun. It's me and like a really good friend of mine from New York, and then we usually have like one other person on, usually another friend, and then we just talk about dumb geeky shit for an hour. It's fun.
So it's like this.
Yeah. We do video games, but we also do like comics and movies and TV. And like yesterday, we complained about power bills, and it's
awesome.
It's fun.
it's cash. So I've got my
Super Jump
Overwatch,
Radio, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Super Jump. Yeah.
Awesome.
I've got my my Overwatch review in progress. Also, I will plug the scads and scads of guides. Go to shackfacts.com or just to Shack News and click on the guides thing. I've been just killing it with guides lately for Doom and Overwatch and I should also mention that Josh has been killing it with the help of basically everyone. So Cassidy has chipped in on that. I have chipped in on that. Daniel, probably some other people that I'm not thinking of right now, but basically everyone has been contributing to the guides. So at any rate, yeah, we've got those things, and keep an eye out for our E3 plans. I want to be making a big post once some things fall into place about what our E3 plans are. We've already announced that we have a booth, and we've got some cool ideas and things lined up for that. So
Excellent.
Keep an eye out.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. It's our first time having a booth. It's first time having exhibitor badges. That'll be interesting. So thanks for listening. Go review us on iTunes, unless you hated it, in which case private message me personally instead of reviewing us on iTunes. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Maybe Brian will stop convulsing every time I mention Overwatch and sometime.
I think it's mostly out of my system now,
Yeah.
but I will probably be talking about it on some level next
We had
week.
to exercise the demons, so
Yeah. We'll talk about something else next week, I promise.
probably. So we will see you around. For Cassidy Moser, I'm Steve Watts,
I am Brian Carr.
and we'll see you on Chatty.